now I'm just cold as ice.
Welcome guys to Fail Takedin's Guide to Pally Tanking. I wanted to go over in this section about some stats, about some armor. This is part one of a few parts for this guide, so make sure you watch the other videos also. Alright, how do you gear, how do you gem, how do you enchant? I can't explain it better than AskMrRobot.com. Once again, that's www.askmrrobot.com. Go ahead and go to that site. It tells you all how to gem, how to reforge, how to enchant. It also tells you what your best in slot is and compares that to what you're wearing. It'll show you some of the items that you might be really easy for you to obtain, which might be fairly close to your best in slot but not your actual best in slot. So go ahead and go to that website now, check that out. Alright, one thing I want to explain before we start getting into the stats is diminishing returns. Not a whole lot of people understand it. What diminishing returns is as you put more and more points into a certain stat, it becomes less and less effective. You get less and less from it. So let me give you an example to try and explain what diminishing returns does. If you have a 1% chance to dodge, let's just say, you put 100 points into dodge, you might get 9% chance to dodge. Like I said, these are just numbers I'm throwing out there. It has nothing to do with the actual values of the game. You might get an increased 9% chance to dodge. So now you have 10% chance to dodge. Let's say you get another 100 points to put into there. You already have now 10% chance to dodge. You put 100 points into dodge, but now you only see 14%. You've only gained 4% chance to dodge. Well, what happened? You put 100 points in before and you got 9% chance to dodge. Now you're only getting 4? That's what diminishing returns does. As you keep increasing the amount of points you put into the stat, the less and less effective it becomes. So when you get when you get a lot of points into that stat, it takes a lot more points to get that same percentage that you wanted before. So why am I explaining this to you? It's an important thing to know as far as when you look at your stats. For paladins, dodge and parry do suffer from diminishing returns. Now this is important to understand. Why? Because you want to keep dodge and parry, their percentages, as close to each other as you can. Now keep in mind, without giving up other mitigation. Alright? That means that you don't want to not take mastery on something because you're trying to get your dodge and parry as close as you can to each other. That's not what you want to do. You want to try and get them as close to each other as you can, because the more you have of one, the less and less percentage you're getting for the same amount of points that you could have put in a dodge. So let's say 100 points, let's say, gives you 1% chance to parry. But your parry's at like 15% and your dodge is only at 10. So we take those 100 points and then we put them into dodge. Well, the same 100 points that only give you 1% into parry now are giving you 1.5 chance to dodge. So we've actually gained 0.5 mitigation, 0.5% mitigation total. So I hope that maybe explains little things why it's important to keep your dodge and parry as close as possible. Your block does not suffer from diminishing returns. Your block, it takes about 179 points roughly, and I say roughly because it varies just very slightly. 179 points of mastery from your gear will actually give you 1 point of mastery. That will give you 2.25% chance to block. That's very important that I want to say chance, and I want to distinguish the difference. Okay, why stamina fourth? A lot of tanks, they like to stack stamina, and I'll explain why. It kind of makes sense, but it's actually not as good as stacking mitigation versus stamina. The reason why is because of magic damage. A lot of tanks, they don't have that mitigation for magic damage. All of our mitigation is basically physical damage. So what their thought is well, I'm going to stack stamina so that I have a buffer that's going to allow the healer to heal me through that magic damage. So that's the idea behind stacking stamina. Paladins also have a stat that's affected by stamina. We'll go into that a little bit later when we go into the talent section. But just know we don't want to stack stamina over dodge, parry, or mastery, because we would rather have the mitigation to reduce our damage than we would to just have sort of a buffer. We're still taking the same amount of damage, and now we're taking it in chumps. That's also one thing I wanted to point out, the difference between putting stats and dodge and parry and block. Why would you do that? Like, why would you take dodge and parry over block? Dodge and parry, every time you dodge or you parry, you miss all that damage that you dodge or parrying. Block is still extremely important right under dodge and parry because it slows down how fast you take the damage. You buffer 30%. Actually, let me explain that real quick. Paladins have a 30% block. That's not chance to block, that's actual block. What the difference is 30% block comes from how much damage you're actually going to remove from an attack when you do block. So when you do actually block, you're actually going to reduce that total value of the hit by 30%. We can increase this as a paladin up to 41%, but you're going to see that my chance to block, or my actual block, is 31%. The reason for this is because of excuse me here, the Eternal Shadow Spirit Diamond that I have in the helmet here. And this is actually what's given me that extra little bit of 1%. It's a really nice gem, meta gem to have in your helmet. We can actually get up to 40% by using our Holy Shield. We'll get a little more into that when we go into the spec. Alright, for your hit and expertise, you're actually not going to want to stack them anymore. You're just going to want whatever you get from your gear. Basically, with 4.1, they did some changes where your interrupts are no longer based off of your hit chance. They're 100%, so you can no longer miss with your interrupts. The second thing is your Shield of the Righteous. If you miss it, it doesn't consume your holy power, so you still get to keep your holy power. It does use your Sacred Duty, so you will lose Sacred Duty, but you'll still keep your holy power. You also have 20 seconds with Holy Shield to keep it up. So between your Crusader Strikes and your Avenger Shield, you're going to have plenty of time to get that 3 holy power. Go ahead and do Shield of the Righteous again to keep your holy shield up. The other thing I wanted to notice is a lot of people are going to go, oh no, that's going to reduce my DPS, that's going to significantly reduce my threat. It's not really going to reduce your threat a whole lot if you use that Ask Mr. Robot. Your threat gen will still stay up. However, you'll be able to spend those points that you would normally stack into hit and expertise. You'll be able to now put that into mitigation stats. That's actually going to help you avoid damage. That's the big difference. That's why we want to get rid of hit and expertise, because it does take quite a bit to try and get that hit and expertise cap. So I'll leave you with that. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and you can always whisper me in game, talk to me in guild there. I have no problem answering some questions, and sometimes I learn things by trying to explain it. So I love to teach. Go ahead, whisper me on Faltankanen. This ends the first section of the guide as far as gearing and gemming and all that, and what the stats actually do. I hope to see you guys in the next section about actually setting up your talent points.
Rollers on the corner chatting blah blah blah. Hot from your block. Spot on your pavement.